First of all, many thanks to Professor Brian and Griffith University. What a privilege it is to share my views with such a distinguished audience where some of my students are there and my worst critic, Mrs. Mustafa. I come from a country which is coming up in space technology. We are already on the Mars. A country where we have few Christian majority provinces. We have one Muslim majority province. A country which in 1947 was divided in the name of the religion. Yet the framers of the constitution in their wisdom decided to have no official religion of the state. While our counterpart in Pakistan went for Islamization, we adopted a spirit of inquiry and scientific temper as the fundamental values of our constitution. The country which the heterogeneity explains India. But why I am here? Because at the moment, we have Mr. Narendra Modi at the helm of affairs. As our Prime Minister, someone who is alleged to have played some role in the Gujarat genocide, because of which he was denied United States visa for many years. True, after taking over, he has not made any provocative statement. True, he has said on the floor of the parliament that Muslims are an integral part of our country, and if some limb of the body is not doing well, the country as such cannot progress. And true, in his maiden Independence Day speech from the Red Fort, he said, let us have a moratorium at least for 10 years in terms of communal violence. Yet, the huge majority with which he has come to power has made minorities irrelevant. Out of some 1,500 legislators of his party in different states, we have only two Muslim ministers. Leaders who are involved in communal violence and frequent hate speeches have been rewarded with ministerial berths. RSS, the cultural organization behind the Bharatiya Janata Party, the present ruling party in the country, is calling the shots. And in the BJP manifesto, on the basis of which he came to power, we have anti-conversion laws on agenda. And already in half a dozen states, we have anti-conversion laws, and strangely they are called freedom of religion laws. They restrict freedom, but they are called freedom of religion laws. Cow slaughter is on the agenda. And recently in one of the provinces where again BJP came to power, the president of the BJP said that slaughtering cows should be equated with culpable homicide and must be punishable with life imprisonment. I am here because it is on BJP's manifesto to construct a grand temple on the demolition site of Babri Mosque. In 1992, you would recall that under the leadership of Mr. L.K. Advani, a mosque, 400 years old mosque was demolished. As a student of constitutional law, I am interested in freedom of religion. I am interested in violence against Christians, and Gujarat was notorious for this. Even though the Christian population in the country has gone down, yet day in and day out we hear that these Christian missionaries are converting whole of India into Christianity. And most of them are Indian, they are not foreign missionaries as well. These are my concerns. That's why I want to share what is the state of freedom of religion, religious rights in my country at the moment. Indians have never been and will never be otherworldly. Their spiritualism, though lofty in the metaphysics, is mostly a means to harness divine support for power and pef. India today is teeming with millions of educated, relatively well-to-do men and women who enthusiastically participate in global networks of science and technology. The Indian economy is betting its fortunes, at least in part, on advanced research in biotechnology and drug industry, whose very existence, in my opinion, is a testament to a thoroughly materialistic understanding of the natural world. And yet, a vast majority of these middle-class educated Indians, the beneficiaries of modern science and technology, they continue to believe in supernatural powers supposedly embodied in idols, divine men and women, stars and planets, rivers, trees, and sacred animals. Unlike New Zealand, we heard in the morning, the national survey conducted by the Center for the Study of Developing Countries for IB and CNN Hindustan Times says among Indians the level of religiosity has gone up considerably during last 5 years. While 30% said they have become more religious during the last 5 years, only 5% mentioned in negative. And Hindus, the majority community, are not the only ones who are becoming more religious. The 2007 State of Nation survey shows that 38% of Indian Muslims, 47% of Christians, and 33% of Sikhs, as compared to 27% Hindus, claim to have become more religious in last 5 years. The number of registered religious buildings in Delhi grew from mere 516 in 1980 to 2,000 in 1987, and with similar trends in the rest of the country. It is shocking that in India, where we have only 2.5 million places of worship, we have just 1.5 million schools and barely 75,000 hospitals. And this is the data on the basis of 2001 census. The religiosity in the country is also on rise. This can be seen from the rise in the pilgrimages. According to recent survey of Nalsar, religious trips account for more 50% of all package tours, much higher than leisure tour packages at 28%. The most recent figures show in 2004, more than 23 million people visited the Balaji temple at Tirupati. I'll come back to this temple. Now, the government also supports this rise in religion in a big way. And you know, officially we are a secular country. So I'm giving you figures from some of the states. The state of Tamil Nadu, for instance, gives 7.5 million every year to state's Hindu Religious and Charitable Endowment Department. The official report says that the government increased the grant to temple renovations from 4.5 million to 3 billion. In the state of Rajasthan, another province in the western India, 390 of states' less famous and poorer temples fall under the direct control of government, all expenses paid from the state budget. In the state of Rajasthan, from where Mr. Modi comes, Hindu priests have been on government payroll since 2001. The BJP-led government of the state announced in 2001 that it will pay a monthly salary of Rs 1,200 to all priests working in 354 temples. In the state of Madhya Pradesh, another BJP-ruled state, the government has decided to make priests employees of the state. India is liberalizing and globalizing its economy. The country is experiencing a rising tide of popular Hinduism, which is leaving no social segment and no public institution untouched. The rise in religiosity has the support of leading institutions of the state, the temples, and the business sector, often working in a three-sided partnership. The ideology of Hindutva and the economics of liberalization are not only reconcilable, but complementary. Overall, it seems fair to say that the economic prosperity which we are experiencing at the moment is bringing in the new rush hour of God in India. Nearly a quarter of century into the so-called economic reforms, there is not much of a trickle down of wealth, not a pull-up of poor through growth of power, gainful employment. In anything, the growing prosperity of middle and upper class income groups depends upon the growing impoverishment of the rest. In the words of Amit Bhaduri, a well-known Indian economist, growing inequality is driving growth, and growth is fueling further inequality. India is rising in the Forbes global ranking of billionaires, while sliding in the United Nations global ranking of human welfare, and that pains me. In 2008, there were $53 billionaires, that is those with a rupees of 1 billion in India, up to rupees 40 billion in 2000 and 9 in 2004. India is home of more billionaires today than any other Asian country, more than China and Japan. In 2014, 100 richest Indians, all billionaires, have combined wealth of $346 billion, up more than a third from last year. Then there are millionaires, and there are many, many. The rate of growth was more than twice the growth of millionaires in the United States. But at a time when great fortunes are being amazed, India is backsliding on the Human Development Index, or HDI, which measures well-being along the three dimensions of health, education, and income. And we are unfortunately ranked 134th, and our neighbor Sri Lanka is at the high of 73rd. Secularization remained an unfulfilled agenda, and religion has not been relegated to the private sphere by the state, business, or the working class. Even today, religion remains an important force influencing politics, the distribution of economic growth and social values, and faith-based organizations remain the dominant form of non-state service providers. So we have madrasas, we have Christian institutions, and of course I talked about RSS, which is calling shots at the moment. What about the religious rights in India? The case of India is particularly interesting for two important reasons. First, India is among the few countries that do not have a recognized official religion. Unlike many other nations in South Asia, India is a democratic and secular republic. Yet while proclaiming itself to be a secular polity, religion has a presence in the country's public and political life. Religion, in other words, is not conceived as a private matter that can be eclipsed in the public arena. Rather, religious groups and communities are recognized by the Constitution. Religious diversity is acknowledged and protected through a framework of enabling provisions. In recent times, the return of religion in the public sphere has been linked to the inability of states to meet the aspirations of marginalized communities, which usually fail to gain from development. In India, by comparison, development concerns fragment or at least internally differentiate religious communities. Political parties address development needs by identifying groups within religious communities and then devising socio-specific policies for them. India is in many respects quite distinct from other post-colonial societies. Unlike many of her neighbors in South Asia, with whom she shares a history and culture, independent India self-consciously pursued the ideals of liberal democracy. India's constitution endorsed not just the principle of formal and legal equality, universal adult franchise, and an elected representative form of government, but also the ideal of secularism. The term secularism was initially not used in the Constitution and was inserted by the 42nd Amendment, but subsequently the court held it to be the basic structure of the Constitution. The post-partition India was at a crossroad. There were members in the Constituent Assembly who said India should talk of rights of minorities once Pakistan decides what rights Pakistan is giving to its minorities. But there were leaders like Pandit Nehru who said that India's case of minority rights is independent of what Pakistan does to its minorities. Secularism surfaced as a commitment to the ideal of religious non-discrimination, the belief that no one should be discriminated against on account of their religious identity. The Constitution actualized this principle in two ways. One, through an implicit agreement that a state will not establish any religion as the official religion, and two, by granting equal religious and political liberty to all religious communities. The former was similar to the non-establishment clause that defines the American notion of secularism. In other words, it complied the dominant Western conception of secularism. The latter gave the notion of secularism in India a distinct content. Unlike many other Western secular democracies, non-establishment did not translate into the eclipse of religion in the public arena. Instead of restricting religion to the private domain, the Constitution recognized the presence of many different religious communities with their own distinct moral and social codes and ways of life. It protected the religious liberty of all communities and created a framework that was conducive to the promotion of religious diversity. The Constitution gave each individual, and by extension each community, the right to profess, propagate, and practice their religion, Article 25. While most liberal societies give citizens freedom of conscience and right to religious worship, in India they have the right to perform and observe religious practices. I would like to say the Supreme Court has been little conservative and unfair between communities. It has developed the doctrine of essentiality to say that right to religion would mean what is protected is an essential aspect of your religion. But when it came to Muslims, it said it will decide what is an essential aspect of Islam. But when it came to other communities, it said we would look into the religious texts of those religions. Similarly, I believe that there have been some decisions from the high courts which are not very encouraging. For instance, the Calcutta High Court talking about banning Quran, saying that this is a book which talks of hatred, or again Calcutta High Court banning azan, saying that it causes noise pollution, or the Allahabad High Court saying Muslims are not even a minority, or when the Supreme Court itself got an opportunity to look at the importance of freedom of religion. There were three Christian kids following Jehovah's sect in Kerala. They did not sing the national anthem. Their elder brothers and sisters also have done the same. Nobody noticed it. But lately, nationalism is on rise. Somebody noticed it. They were rusticated from the school. They challenged the rustication in the Kerala High Court. The High Court looked at each and every word of national anthem to find that there is nothing against Jesus in this national anthem. They came in appeal in the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court again refused to decide it under freedom of religion. Rather, Supreme Court decided it under freedom of speech and expression. And they said that since they did not obstruct the National Assembly, they kept their eyes shut, their heads down, therefore they were exercising their right to silence. Recognition of religion and religious differences was extended in several different ways. At the most immediate level, religious symbols and markers of religious identity were accepted. The Sikhs, for instance, are permitted to carry kirpan, a small knife, and different communities can wear their specific headgear or other elements of their dress code in all public places, the workplace, civilian and military, private and public. We are ahead of, in fact, European Court of Human Rights. Religious practices are similarly permitted. These include the rendering of namaz or other kinds of collective prayers in public areas, street processions, and the use of public property and the land for religious functions. Even more importantly, the state recognized the presence of plural and diverse personal laws, as well as the religious institutions involved in the enunciation and the interpretation of these codes. Perhaps the most significant aspect of religious liberty in India is the rights which have been given to minorities. Article 29 gives them the right to preserve and conserve their distinctive language, script, and culture. And Article 30 gives minorities, both religious and linguistic minorities, the right to establish and administer educational institutions of their choice. And Supreme Court here was quite liberal, saying choice means that it is within the power of the minorities to expend their choice as much as they want. And they said that the word educational institution would include even a university. So religious minorities in India can set up their own universities, and a state in giving aid cannot discriminate against those universities. And while the religious education in a state institution is not permitted, religious education can be given in the minority institution. Therefore, I can say secularism provides the larger structure within which the issues of religion and religious communities in India have been framed. Although India has no official religion, the understanding of secularism that is embodied in the Constitution does not represent the separation of religion from the state. And finally, the last point which I want to make is, by and large, the state does not have different policies for different religious communities. But in 2008, a Chancellor committee recommendations came in, which looked into the plight of Muslims in India and found that Muslims are doing very, very badly. And thereafter, the government is saying that maybe we have to think of in terms of different policies for different communities. Therefore, I would just conclude with this. The findings of the Chancellor committee have initiated a new debate. Even as its findings are being understood, debated, and challenged, they have shown that a range of different factors ranging from discrimination to past history and the choices made by the individuals can yield situations of inequality and disadvantage. These are questions that are currently being debated, irrespective of policies that may eventually be initiated in response. There is no doubt that religion is poised to enter the public domain and public debates in a new way. Religious identities may become more than a mark of personal identity. They may become relevant in social policy. Will such forms of group differentiation divide society and allow inter-community conflict to simmer? Will they make India a community-based society? History alone will provide answers. But we can be sure that those answers will significantly shape the direction that humankind takes in this new millennium. We need to make peace between and within religions. We need to convince government that if economic development is goal, then peace is a condition precedent. And peace can be achieved only when all religious minorities live in peace with each other. I would just quote Urdu poet, "Mazhab nahi sikhata, aapas mein bair rakhna, Hindi hum watan hai, Hindustan hamara." There is no religion which teaches hatred. We are all Indians, and India is our country. Thank you very much.